Are you ready to join me in transforming fear to freedom? That's the objective of the show. Are you ready to explore with me and my guests? Are you ready to get into the deep and play? This is where it's at, and that's what it's all about. No medical advice here. Use discernment and decide for yourself if the information is right for you. All views and opinions expressed on this show belong to the individual and are not necessarily shared with the producer of the show. Want more details? Go to letsgetrealchattingwithcatherine.com. Now let's get real and have some fun. Who are we going to explore with today? Come on with me and let's get into the deep. Hey, welcome to Let's Get Real, chatting with Catherine, and today we're going to be chatting with Rose Sangregorio of the Metaphysical Center of Canada Corporation. It's always a treat to explore with Rose. Today we're going to be talking about this spring equinox 2015. We're going to also be talking about the power of this eclipse that's coming, and plus there is the moon influence as well. Rose got into all of that with us, as well as we explored into some stuff on past lives as well. Talked about how we can look at this energy in a way that is empowering. She gave us some tips and some tools and some insight into what she's picking up from her guides and her wisdom and her teachings that she's been doing for over 20 years. So it's very interesting to see. You know, the past life issue has come up quite a bit lately, and I think a lot of people are beginning to realize that we're more than just our existing body in this lifetime, and how those past lives can have some influence on us, and what can we do about it? Like, it's empowering. That's what I think is the key here, is to realize knowing this information isn't just for the well, it is for curiosity's sake, but it's also, it gives us insight. And one of the big things that Rose really stressed was that this period right now until Easter, April 4th, 2-week period, is a really potent energy, and that knowing that, I think, will help us to use the energy to our benefit, to create better lives. So whatever we're thinking about, intending, our affirmations and such during this time are really powerful. So we're going to get into this chat right now with Rose Sangregorio. If you want to know more about her courses, her CDs, her book, all that kind of stuff, you can go to www.lgrcc.com, go to the guest link, and Rose's name is there. Plus, you can listen to her other shows that she's done with me, as we talked about during the show, and because she's got some seminars and things coming up locally in the Calgary area, and of course she has some other things as well. So it's a very interesting time to be on this planet, and I'm just so looking forward to this chat today. I hope you enjoy it. Share it. Visit us on Facebook and Twitter and all the social media, Google Plus and LinkedIn and so forth. And of course, go to the website where there's lots of articles and other show links and guests information as well. So hey, there's lots here for you today. So let's get into this chat right now. So it's really exciting for me to be sitting down once again with Rose Sangregorio of the Metaphysical Center of Canada Corporation, and she is always full of insight and wisdom from her guides, and we are at such a exciting time. It's March 18th, 2015. Got lots of things, equinox coming up, a big eclipse coming up, and just other energy shifts. So we're going to get into some of that. And so thank you so much, Rose, for joining me once again on Let's Get Real, chatting with Catherine. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. And of course for me too, it's a big pleasure always to chat with you and to create the service of being able to put this information out for people to receive and help people a little more on their path, their journeys of life on earth. So yeah, it's always a pleasure to be here.
You know, I really notice now more than ever. I remember a couple of years ago people saying, you know, this is this kind of work, because I remember thinking myself, why am I doing this, like these kinds of chats and explorations? And it's not just metaphysical, of course, that I talk about, because I'm all about bringing it all in, because we're more than just our metaphysical, but we're more than just our bodies, and everything relates, social issues and so forth, and how we are on this planet. But I remember somebody saying to me, you know what, there's going to be so many people who are going to be waking up to a new awareness, and this information is going to be like a treasure find, because when we were starting, and especially like you started quite a few years before me. I think my really intense journey was about 10 or 12 years ago, but there was nothing out there and to access, and so you really had to do it yourself. You come to your gifts, on your own, trial and error. So it's so sweet that we have this, and you're offering your time and service to people to give them this insight. So I really appreciate it. And I'm sure from the comments I get, our listeners and viewers do too.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I started this journey more consciously with intention about 1994, 1995, sort of touch it and then move away and touch it, move away. So it took me about a year to really full blown be in this energy and working with it. But definitely at that time, it was all underground. This was all considered way out there. And if you talk to people about this stuff, they thought you were nuts and you needed to go to a psych ward. And so definitely, if I had the ability to access information from people that have been on a journey, to get explanations of things, of what's going on, I definitely, I was lucky. This was my path. The masters, the angels, the archangels all came to me and started to teach me, because I had nowhere to go. I had no one to talk to. Yes, there was a person here and a person there, but not to the extent of what I needed.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that for people who are just starting to, I don't even like to use the word wake up, because it makes it sound like they've been, consciously just not, aware, just what, and that's not really what it is. It's just part of our evolution, is to become aware of different understandings, much like when they discovered gravity, or they discovered the world wasn't flat, or, it's not because anybody deliberately just chose to be asleep, so to speak. But when you do start to feel, okay, stuff is happening, this is weird, what's going on, or, having those questions, sometimes you think you could think, I'm going crazy. And so that's why I think, we've all, that's why I'm sharing that, is because most people I've ever talked to who are on a spiritual path, on a ascension path, feeling like they're light workers, feeling whatever, they do feel that from time to time. Am I going crazy? What am I doing here? Why? And I'm just going to say, as great lead up to this March, the equinox, and then we have this big eclipse coming right after that. So these energies are pretty intense. And I wonder, let's start with the equinox. where to start? Like, since January, it's been a big, ride, and now we're kind of coming into another wave. I personally feel much lighter, but I don't know if that's just, where I'm at.
It depends on who you are, what you've been doing when it comes to your spiritual path, how much of your heavy stuff you've cleared. It makes a difference on different people. But definitely this year, when I do my yearly meditation, World Peace Meditation, which happened on December 28th, this was something that the masters had said, that this year was a year of great deepening and accessing parts of ourselves that have been very much hidden from us because we just weren't ready to deal with them. And on this planet, coming into this, the 2 weeks of the equinox the 2 weeks of the solar eclipse and then the lunar eclipse and the equinox on top of that, the masters did say this coming 2 weeks are going to be very, very powerful and potent for everyone on the planet. But depending on who you are and what you do with your life. For some people, it's going to be extremely potent and powerful. And for some people, it's going to be like a little blip on their screen, depending on where we're at. It's got to do with our awareness, and it's got to do with our consciousness as well. So everyone's going to be affected. Right. Everyone is going to receive, I like to call them pulses of energy or pulses of light that come into our universe. And those pulses, as they come to us, we are made up of electromagnetic energy. So that energetic field, that pulse, when it comes to us, depending on how clear we are, will depend on how aware we are of what we're receiving. And so what's going to happen, we have Equinox coming, which typically the spring equinox is very strong in itself on its own. But March 20th is equinox as well as the solar eclipse. And that opens a portal for all of us. And the way the masters have been saying it to me, or my guides have been saying it to me, is that this portal is very powerful for the 2 weeks between the solar eclipse March 20th and the lunar eclipse April 4th, which is Easter. So those 2 weeks that are coming up, and we're moving into it now, it's not exactly on the 20th. It's going to be a few days going into it, which we're in it right now, and it'll be a few days after the 4th. Again, it's sort of like building into it. We're in the 2 weeks, and then we come out of it. And so what ends up happening for all of us, we're being given the possibilities to make choices of creating a whole new reality for ourselves if we wish to. And that's something I've been saying for a long time. You know, it's about creating a new reality and creating the new world. But this is a little bit different, these 2 weeks. These 2 weeks are about really being aware. And again, this is about our awareness and where we are consciously. If we choose to not be aware consciously, things are still going to happen. But to what extent, I don't know, because everyone's different.
Yeah.
But I'm going to assume people that are listening to this are aware to some degree and are consciously aware, more so than someone who's not. Everyone's aware of their own reality. Everyone's aware of their own selves in their own world. But what I'm discussing here is the awareness of the world outside of us, the metaphysical world. And I'm discussing the awareness of ourselves as a spiritual being within those energies of the metaphysical world. So that's what I'm talking about. So everyone is conscious, everyone's aware, but I'm talking about a specific type of awareness. We also talk about it as being spiritual.
Yeah, and is this what you say? This is a bit different. This is more personal, as you know. We hear people all the time. We're always talking about world peace. People have been longing for that for eons, and since the first pageants. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, every beauty pageant, I want world peace. You know, was a joke. But the truth is, because that is a longing in us, you know, for world peace, because we feel like if everybody else is in harmony, then we will be too. And that's actually kind of the opposite. When you're on a spiritual journey, when you're into the metaphysical understandings, you realize you don't control that. You don't have any. So this time is really personal. Am I getting that right? That sense that this is about us creating the world we specifically envision.
You know, Catherine, that's exactly what it's about. It's always been about us, but it's been within the big scope of the world. And as you say, these 2 weeks are literally about us looking within ourselves to see, where do I create disharmony within myself? Because of course, what I create within myself, I then have in my energy field, and I project it out into the world. So if there's disharmony within me, then that disharmony does assist our world to stay in disharmony.
Right.
So these 2 weeks, it's kind of like having someone as a personal trainer who's there specifically for you, who's there to say, okay, you know, Rose, you just got triggered by that, and let's look at what is there. And it's like this personal trainer, the universe complete with all those beings of light are there to support each individual to look at where are your weaknesses, where are your strengths, what can be changed, what can be let go of, what do you take and move forward with, what do you want to create completely whole. Like I said, it's like a personal trainer. You go in, it's like you don't know what exercises work for you. You don't know what muscle groups need to be strengthened and which ones are already strong. So this is the 2 weeks that are coming up. It is like a clean slate. It's like walking in to this new reality, and you've got this personal trainer, which is your universal energetic field of all those beings of light that work for us. They're there, and they're there to help us. So how do we utilize these 2 weeks is the question. So I don't like to predict, because everything in creation varies based on everyone's conscious awareness and choices.
Right.
So if through these 2 weeks we end up with a huge amount of people that are really consciously, with their awareness, looking at what's being triggered in them, what do they change, etc. If we get enough people there, on a collective level, the energy field of the planet changes. So things will become more harmonious because they are within all of us. If we have only a small grouping that makes these changes, then what's coming up collectively then doesn't have, there's not enough harmonized energy present in the collective to transform the disharmony. And so I can't predict. In the bigger picture, when I look, the masters show me and tell me that we have on Earth right now more light than ever before. And when I say, but, you know, people say to me, well, you know, what about ISIS? And what about the oil crisis here? And what about the women being abused? And what their answer is, consistently it's been this way for a long time now, is the only reason you hear about it is because of your media. This stuff has been always on our planet.
Yeah.
But the what's changed is the amount of people who are choosing service for the greater whole. And that's how they look at our world.
Plus, wouldn't more light show up the things that we haven't been willing to maybe see before? Like, you know, when you're cleaning your house, if you did it at night in the dark, you're not going to be able to clean like you are in the daytime, bright sunlight, and, you know, you can see it. You can see the things to clean up. So the more light is here, maybe that's also part of it. I mean, I I don't watch the news anymore. I figure that if anything is really important, it's going to come to me through social media or through somebody else is going to, you know, pick up on it. However, but to I don't feed myself that anymore. You know, periodically, if it's on, you know, in the room or something, I might stop and have a listen to see what's going on. I'm aware of the political situation in Canada. I'm aware of it in Alberta because it's, you know, and I'm aware of I'm aware of ISIS, and I'm aware of that stuff, but it doesn't feed me. I'm not addicted to it anymore. And that's what I felt years ago. I was just like, I was addicted to it. I just couldn't get enough. Finding out what's going on and what about this, and we have to stop it, and we have to fight it, and we have to, you know. And now I really realize that fighting against anything just makes more of it. That's been my experience. That's what I'm seeing. And on the other hand, I'm seeing that as we do have more awareness, we have to be more discerning of, you know, information that's coming towards us. Is this truth? Is it not truth? Is it true for me? Kind of thing. But it feels like we are opening to some new, along with these crises, we are also seeing some new like alternative energy, is there's starting to be more things coming up about it, more awareness of it, more. So I'm just thinking that even though the light is showing us these, there's more light on the planet, so that means we're going to see the stuff we haven't seen before. Like, that's kind of what you were saying. But the other part of it was that, you know, triggered my question when you were talking was, you know how people have been saying, you're saying the cleaner you are, the more, you know, easier this is going to be and so forth. And then we're stepping into this new time. But, you know, some people have been on this path for 20 years or so, healing the family tree, healing themselves, forgiving everybody and all that kind of stuff. So does that ever end? And what do you mean when you say, you know, is there always more stuff, or how does...
Always. I just want to, let me just backtrack a minute. I'll respond to this in a minute. I just want to complete the information about the 2 weeks coming up. They are about us. They are about us as individuals making the choice to serve the greater good of all through the service we give. And that means recognizing within ourselves, where can we become more in service? So even if I've been doing this work for 30 years, 40 years, 20 years, 1 month, 1 day, where can I improve on myself to be in service for the greater good of all? And so this 2-week period, it's always about that. But these 2 weeks that are coming up, because of the eclipses, they help us see what's hidden. And that's why it's a little different than usual. Because not only are we at the equinox, which is the portal of equalness, right? Night and day is sitting at exactly the same amount of time. It's also about the equinox opens us to be in a neutral place, because that's literally what equinox is. It's being neutral in our universe, in our solar system, in our galaxy, on the planet. So the whole planet is neutral during the equinox. Within that neutrality now, we've got the eclipses, which are giving us the opportunity to see what's hidden.
In a neutral position.
In a neutral position.
Nice.
So the universe, we can tap into this. It's there. It's our gift for this time on Earth. For those who choose to walk into, quote, the fire of the solar eclipse. Because the solar eclipse is about the sun. The sun is about the fire, okay? That's in quotes. And so we walk into the fire. We're in this neutral space, this neutral energy. We step into the fire and we let the fire transform, burn away. It's like the phoenix rising from the ashes, but that cannot happen without the lunar eclipse's energy, which is the emotional body and what's hidden. And so, in our neutral state, am I willing to step into the fire of revelation of who am I really? What do I carry within myself? Definitely I'm a spiritual being that carries all this wonderful energy, but there are parts of me, which is my egoic energy, my ego, my thoughts, my feelings, my behaviors, fears, habits, beliefs that are not part of this part of who I really am. So these 2 weeks are very special in helping us see more clearly with the support of the universe, holding the space of neutrality. So,
well, in that neutrality, I mean, that's key right there, is because you're talking about no judgment. Like, when I hear this, it feels like an invitation. It doesn't feel like it's a negative at all. It feels like here's an opportunity to see who you really are without all the judgment, all that pain. Excuse me. If you're in neutral, you know, is it good, is it bad? Neutral is, don't know. You're just seeing it. And it feels to me like this is a beautiful invitation for people who've been maybe cautious or afraid even of looking at who they really are. Like, really, consciously looking at who they really are. This sounds like I'm not saying it might not be, there might be challenges, but it doesn't, if to me this feels like a lot nicer energy than some of the stuff we've worked with in the past, where you're looking at your stuff and you're going, oh my goodness, I'm like that, I did that, I don't know, it's painful.
So yes, it is about bringing into this reality in our world a new beginning of who am I as a person, Rose, on earth. I'm a spiritual being. Who do I represent as a spiritual being on earth as the person, Rose? This is our opportunity right now. And definitely it's more ease and grace than we've had in the past, but the energy is very strong. Mm-hmm. And so if people resist the energy of this transformation, if you will, then the resistance is an energy that's not allowing. And therefore resistance creates trauma, right?
Yeah. Resistance isn't neutral.
It's not neutral. And so when I allow whatever it is to be there, and I recognize, wow, you know, this is something that I need to look at. It's a trigger, or it's a resistance, or it's something that's not quite what I would interpret as a divine being in service to the greater good of all. Then what do I do to change it? And we have the support right now. Like I said, we've got our personal trainer. The energy of the universe is there to show us. So no matter how many years we've been doing the work, how much work we've done, and how clear we are, how ascended we are, because everyone's at different levels of ascension.
Yes.
We all must step into this energy field. We must. We don't have a choice. Well, we have a choice of saying, no, I don't want to do it. I don't know if that'll create beneficial energies for anybody. If they say, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to transform. I don't want to serve the greater good of all.
But the question that keeps coming to me is, okay, you know, it's a free will, it's a choice and all that stuff. But what about the people who really have not at all been in any way pursuing a spiritual path of any kind, aren't really aware of, they're not aware of anything in the metaphysical aspect, they're not aware of the effects of, maybe they don't even recognize how the moon can affect us on a regular cycle. Maybe they're just not aware at all of these energies. How does that, or are you not talking about it at a conscious level, you're talking about it at a subconscious level, or how would this affect them?
What I said earlier is we all are being affected by this energy.
Yes.
And whether a person is consciously aware of following a spiritual path, maybe it's somebody who just goes to church on Sundays. It doesn't really matter. Like, I know when I go back in my timeline of my life on earth, knowing today, you know, 1987 was the harmonic convergence, and then, you know, the next date, specific date. When I look back in my time, at that time, I was totally unaware, unconscious of this other world out there. I'm still conscious and I'm still aware, but I was aware of my own life at that time. And so when I look back, though, significant things happened in my life that reflect the energies that were present at the time. So even if someone is not consciously pursuing a spiritual path, we are all spiritual beings. We all carry that light within us that is the divine spark. Therefore, that divine spark is what propels us forward in our lives. Whether we do good acts or not, at some core deep level, we still are spiritual beings. So depending on our life plans and what we chose in this lifetime,
right,
then that is how we will be affected. So these 2 weeks that are coming up, it's for everyone on the planet. People can still choose. I mean, in the end, whether you're consciously aware or not, whether you're on a spiritual path or not, you're still making choices every moment of every day. True. And we are all given the opportunity to make choices different than what we've done in the past if we so choose, because the energies are there to help us.
Yeah, and for people who are just maybe tuning into this just because they're saying, what's going on? Maybe they are feeling something, like you say. Maybe something significant is going on. I just want to let you know, you can't, Rose also has tools, aside from the information we're sharing here today. She has tools on her website that, and I'll put the link right on the video, that you can go to, you know, she's got CDs, she's got meditations, she's got seminars, she's got workshops to help you if you feel called to know more, to understand more. And because it's, you know, that's one of the things. I mean, I want to make sure people know there are tools. You're not alone, and you don't have to fear this, because it is a pretty natural thing, actually, isn't it? It really is natural.
Because spirit, the energy of spirit, whatever you want to call it, is all about expansion and bringing everything to harmony.
Yeah.
That's what spirit is. So we all carry that within us. But some people have it veiled or covered by the negative thoughts and feelings that have been created. And so they behave in a way from fear rather than spiritual light.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, just so we're supported in this time, regardless whether we know it or not, we are supported, and energy will move us. Like you say, when you didn't know back in '87, there are things happen in your life that will help you, direct you to, you know, there's a saying, you can go ease and grace or kicking and screaming, but you're going.
You're going. Exactly.
You're going. And so...
And literally everyone's going to be affected. Depending, it's like there's a sense of grace as well that's involved in all of this. It's like if you have a little kid, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, 2 years old, and you take them into a store, you forgot to tell them that, wow, there's all this candy here, and you forgot to tell them you have to pay for that. You know, so they take it. You didn't see them. They took the candy. They've eaten it. They didn't know any better. Therefore, there's a grace in that. There's no judgment. Wow, this child didn't know. But you take an adult like me going into a store and helping myself to candy without paying for it. There's a different repercussion to my action.
Yes.
Because I should know better. So we have people on the planet that are not following a conscious spiritual path, but they are still driven by the soul within them. Mm-hmm. They can choose to still do good things, give service for the greater good of all, and they don't know they're following, quote, a spiritual path. They're just doing what their soul is driving them to do.
Right. There
are people who know better, but they still choose to do things that will hurt or harm others. Then the repercussion to that, and I don't want to call it a judgment, the repercussion on an energetic level then is different for them, which then creates trauma. The ones who have the grace, like the kid that didn't know any better, they are still moved forward by the divine light. But the ones who know better and choose the path of hurting or harming or bringing disharmony, then their repercussions will be different. And that's where the traumatic stuff happens.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the key is, well, I want people to know that there are tools available, and that's another thing is Journey to Self-Enlightenment is Rose's book, which is also available on her website. And that, I mean, there's all kinds of tools in there to help you, because I think more and more people are going to start questioning what's going on. And that, I have to say, right now, I'm really noticing it, because I'm very active on social media, so I'm getting all kinds of different communications with people at all different places on their path, and different religions and faiths, and, you know, atheism, not, and everything. And so, and what I'm noticing now is a lot more people saying, hey, you know, did you know this, or did you think this is possible? And one of the areas that I wanted to ask you about, Rose, because it is very intriguing to me, very intriguing, and that's about parallel realities. And it's interesting because I did ask this question to a couple of other guests that I've had on the show, and, you know, different people had different ideas about it. But one of the things, well, there's a couple of things. One, I would ask you to, if you've ever heard of it and if you have any thoughts on whether it's even possible. And the other part of it is, the question that came up recently is, could a parallel reality be influencing this reality? And I guess that's what quantum science is looking at now, which I find really intriguing. Could it be influencing this reality? So do you have any thoughts on that?
Okay. Definitely there are parallel realities. In my work, in the work I've done, I'm coming on to 20 years now of working with people, and there's definitely parallel realities. There's definitely alternate realities. There's definitely other universes, other realms, other dimensions. So a simple way would be to explain it in this manner. And I believe the quantum world that has been, quote, discovered recently is really the world of what we have always called spirit or God. It's just now science and religion, if you will, are coming together. And that's really what the energy's about. It's the two are coming together. And so now we've got to find a way to merge the two. And to merge the two then means that we are going to merge the idea of the quantum world, and it's proving scientifically that what we've always talked about exists. Okay. So that's just a point I wanted to make. In my book, I explain this in much better detail, and I do teach classes with regards to all of these things we're talking about. In my book, there is a chart. I call it the monadic chart. And I'm going to only make this, I can only make it brief because it takes, a 2-day workshop to explain it in great detail. But I'll do my best to explain it simple so people can understand. We all have inside of us a spark of light. We call it the divine light. We call it a soul. We call it an atma. Whatever you want to call it, your true self. That energy, that spark is there because in the big, big picture, Source decided to extend itself into creation to experience creation. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Yes.
So, if I, Rose, am my source, I am Rose. Rose, the consciousness of myself, is who I am. But if I want to discern, I want to discover who Rose is, what do I do? Well, one way would be looking at, and we do this when we're little babies, when babies start to discover their limbs.
Right.
That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. So if I want to know what my right foot is doing right now, it's on the floor. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens. If we slowed it all down, my thought, which is the thought of God, okay, that's what we talk about. It's a thought. My thought is, what is my foot doing? Then there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens. The thought becomes a vibration, which goes through the nervous system, which goes through my body, and I don't know the whole process, but all of a sudden I can feel that my foot is on the floor and it's cold, for example. Now, for me to get that message, though, it has to go all the way back up. Okay?
Right.
So in my book, I call it the monadic structure. So there is God, spirit, your I am presence, whatever you want to call it, has this thought, and it wants to experience creation. And so the energy, that thought, moves down through dimensions and realms, and it starts to slow down in frequency, and it starts to densify. Okay, so if we took light, let's put it this way. If I took light and put it through a prism, what happens to the light? It's no longer just, quote, light that's clear.
Right.
The light refracts into literally the 12 rays.
Right.
So this happens with Creator. the thought of creator or spirit, whatever, says, I want to extend myself to find out what's happening in all these other dimensions. There is a law, and this is something I can't prove it other than I just know this is what is. I've had it shown to me in many things in our world. There is a law that from the 1, there are 12 rays. The 12 make the 13th, which then is the next layer. So we're going to go down. So we've got God, spirit. It refracts through the dimension, through the prism, and it becomes 12 rays. And we have a layer. We put little pods there. And each layer has 12 rays. And this goes on through creation. So then we come to my higher self, which is an extension of the monad. Those are the words I use, okay? Different teachings use different words.
Right.
My monad has 12 extensions, okay? Of those 12, we call them 12 higher selves. Those 12 higher selves extend into 12 soul extensions. I, Rose, am a soul extension of my higher self, but my higher self actually has 12. I'm one of 12. I know, it's a little mind-boggling. And
Isn't that amazing? Thank you to my guests for sharing with us today. Thank you for watching. Feel free to share the link. You can join us for live shows by going to letsgetrealchattingwithcatherine.com and listen to the replays from the show page, preview guests, and explore links to our Facebook fan page, WordPress blog, and more. We are creating an exquisite world. Until next time, take care.